HIV/AIDS was first identified in Uganda in the early 1980s, and Noreen Kaleeba's late husband Christopher was one of those diagnosed with the disease at that time. The deadly disease was largely unknown then, and many falsehoods were attached to it. One of these was that just getting into close contact with the sick would lead to infection. Noreen and her family went through the most difficult times, facing discrimination from people around them when the family head was fighting for his life.
So after Christopher was diagnosed, and when he came back from England here, just before he died, we were exposed to excruciating stigma. There was a time when my 3 children could not even go to school, but they couldn't go to school because their friends were laughing at them. Until I had to go to Buganda Road and address the teachers and address the students and say, yes, my husband has AIDS, my husband did not buy AIDS, and my children don't have AIDS. AIDS does not just move from parent to child. We know that AIDS moves from a woman to her unborn child. So those days were hard days.
It was probably her husband's openness on his HIV status that fanned the stigma. Ironically, this openness gave birth to what is known worldwide as the Aids Support Organization-TASO, an AIDS caregiver body.
And I remember the beginnings of TASO were basically focused on me and my husband and the 12 people who I collected together. Whenever we would meet, we would bring food from our own houses. Whenever one of us was ill, we would collect money and buy medicine and care for them.
Now aged 60 and retired at her country home in Mukono district, Noreen then embarked on a campaign to raise awareness about HIV with no funds to speak of, but with just prayer and counseling as her support.
Then, as you know, there was a time when the people would just come out of curiosity to see how does a person with AIDS look like. And whenever they would do that, they would come and listen to our meetings. And then they would listen to our discussions, were discussions of hope. We were planning for the future. We were planning what will we do next year. What do we need to do to ensure that so and so who is not so well can be supported to be better. So people, that enthusiasm caught on.
Noreen took an HIV test soon after her husband was diagnosed positive, and luckily she was negative, something that was unbelievable even to her doctor.
You know what he told me? He said, Mrs. Kaleeba, your results are negative. But we don't understand why. Maybe the virus hasn't begun to show in your blood. So you should take the test again after 6 months to ascertain that you are HIV positive. That's the way I was given my HIV negative results.
The doctor's remarks almost knocked her off, but because of the support group she and her husband had started, she kept her head high. Since she was living with an HIV-positive husband, yet she was negative, this gave Noreen the strength to even speak more openly to young people about HIV.
Because I was widowed when I was 32, and I cannot say to Ugandans that since that time I have not had a sexual life. I have had a sexual life, but I have had a sexual life of responsibility. The first message I have told anyone who is interested in me in a relationship is that, do you know that my husband died of AIDS? Do you know that I'm the founder of TASO? And in most cases, they run. They don't come back. But in some cases, some selected cases, they come and say, yes, okay. So what does that mean? You are still beautiful. I like you. And if the conversation goes in that direction, the next question is, how do we protect ourselves? I don't know your status. You don't know my status.
She now fosters over 40 children, most of them girls orphaned by HIV/AIDS. Because of her commitment to give social support to people living with the virus, Noreen has been recognized by many international organizations. Former UK Premier Tony Blair wrote her a personal letter thanking her for her tireless efforts in fighting for the lives of people living with HIV. Noreen has earned honorary doctorates for her social work. This beautiful country home was a gift by someone living with the virus, thanking her for the emotional support she offered. She has even worked with the United Nations in Geneva and remains on the UN AIDS Advisory Board. What began as a prayer support group of just 15 people has now expanded into this, with a client base of over 150,000 patients. But probably what is most notable is that even after 25 years, employees here still hail Noreen Kaleeba as one who groomed them into what they are today.
Actually, when you come here and you say that the founder member moved, or that her as a founder member stepped aside, we are like, yeah, it's true she stepped aside, but we still have her. She's still part of us.
At TASO offices in Mulago, Christopher and Noreen's portrait catches your eye as soon as you enter the reception. TASO is now a conglomerate with branches countrywide, not only offering prayer and counseling as it was 25 years ago when Noreen and Christopher began it, but also giving the sick free life-saving antiretroviral drugs. Noreen's success story has been an inspiration to many people who have set up similar caregiving organizations for people living with HIV/AIDS. Isabel Nakiria, NTV.